Hello and welcome. Today, we are diving deep into a piece of your anatomy you rely on every single day, but probably don't give a second thought to. We're talking about your femur. So let's get right to it. So right off the bat, I've got a little pop quiz for you. Just think about it for a second. In your entire skeleton, what one bone holds all three titles? The longest, the absolute strongest, and the heaviest. You've got it. It's the femur, what most of us just call the thigh bone. And for the next few minutes, we're going to take a guided tour of this amazing structure. We'll cover everything from how it keeps you standing tall to a pretty wild secret it holds that can actually be used in a court of law. All right, first up, let's talk about the femur's number one job, support. But it's not just some simple pillar holding you up. The way it's positioned is just a beautiful example of biomechanical engineering. So if you look at how it's oriented, you'll notice your femurs don't go straight up and down. Nope, they actually sit obliquely. They angle inwards from your hips down to your knees. And there's a really good reason for that. This precise slant is what puts your knees and your feet right underneath your body's center of gravity. And that, my friends, is the secret to walking with stability and balance. Now, a bone this important has to stay alive, right? And just like any other part of you, it's living tissue. It needs a constant supply of blood. And understanding this lifeline, well, that's the key to figuring out why certain femur injuries can be so incredibly dangerous. So the head of the femur, that's the ball part that fits into your hip socket, it's fed by this really complex web of arteries you see here. Now, this network is super effective, but it's also really, really vulnerable. And here's the takeaway. If this blood supply gets severed, the bone tissue itself can actually die. Just tuck that piece of information away because it is going to be incredibly important in a minute. Okay, let's travel down the length of the bone. The femur isn't just a smooth stick. Far from it. It's more like a dynamic scaffold, covered in bumps and ridges and grooves, and all of those features are there for one reason, to be an anchor for some of the most powerful muscles in your entire body. And check this out. This is one of the coolest features of the femur. It actually has a natural twist in it. The top of the bone at the hip and the bottom of the bone at the knee aren't perfectly aligned. There's about a 15-degree difference. This is called the angle of anteversion, and that little bit of torsion is absolutely vital for how your leg rotates and moves. And here's where all that power comes from. See, every line and bump on this bone has a job. That long intertrochanteric line, it's the anchor point for your big quad muscles. The trochanteric fossa, that's a docking station for a key hip rotator. And see that gluteal tuberosity? Well, that's the heavy-duty connection point for your gluteus maximus. Yeah, the biggest muscle in your body, giving you the raw power to stand up, climb stairs, and run. Okay, so we've looked at the femur's shape, its blood supply, and where the muscles attach. Now let's put all those pieces together and see what happens when this incredibly strong bone actually breaks. Because with the femur, where it breaks, well, that changes everything. I'm sure you've heard the term hip fracture, right? We hear about it a lot, especially with older folks. And we know it's bad, but what is it that makes it so much more dangerous than, say, breaking your arm? And the answer comes right back to that blood supply we were just talking about. Take a look at this comparison. If you have an intracapsular fracture, one that happens inside the hip joint's capsule, it's super high risk. Why? Because it can easily tear those tiny, crucial arteries feeding the head of the femur. That cuts off the blood, which can lead to something called avascular necrosis, which means the bone tissue literally dies. But if the fracture is extracapsular, outside that capsule, the blood supply usually stays intact, so that risk just isn't there. A bad break can also permanently change the whole shape of the femur. There's a condition called coxavara, and it's where the angle between the neck and the shaft of the bone actually decreases. This can really change the way a person walks, and it's often the result of something called an adduction fracture, where the leg is forced inward. And of course, the opposite can happen too. With coxavalga, that same angle increases instead of decreases. This is often caused by an abduction fracture, where the leg is forced outward. It really just goes to show how different kinds of breaks can literally reshape this critical bone. But the danger isn't only at the hip. A fracture way down at the other end of the femur, near the knee, has a totally different, but just as serious threat. A sharp edge from the broken bone can get pulled backward by your calf muscles and slice right into the popliteal artery. That's a major blood vessel that runs directly behind the bone. Okay, so for our final stop, we're going to shift gears from medicine to forensics. because it turns out the femur has one last, incredible story to tell. It's a bone that can actually, in a way, tell time. Let's just quickly look at how the femur develops. The process of bone hardening, called ossification, starts in the shaft way back around the 7th week in the womb. But the really critical part, the thing you need to see, is that last point. The center for hardening the lower end of the femur doesn't show up until the very end of the 9th month of pregnancy. And this brings us to the femur's most profound secret. Because that final hardening center appears so predictably right around the time of birth, its presence, or its absence, can be used in medical legal cases. It helps forensic experts figure out if a newborn was viable, meaning it had reached full term, at the time of death. Just a tiny, tiny detail of our anatomy, but it can provide a powerful, crucial piece of evidence. Makes you wonder what other secrets our own bodies are holding, doesn't it?